Greetings once again from quarantine, everybody. Today, Front Stretch is proud to welcome on a man who's been in the headlines recently. You may know him as a part-time driver in Xfinity for RCR, but recently he made his Cup debut and did very well at that. It's Kaz Grala. Kaz, what have the last couple days been like for you as soon as you exited the car and took the checkered flag? I imagine it's been a bit of a whirlwind.
It certainly has, and it was a whirlwind long before the checkered flag too. So Saturday morning, I actually found out that Austin Dillon had tested positive for COVID-19. So that was a really unfortunate situation for everyone at RCR. And then I found out that I was going to be the one driving the 3-car this weekend at Daytona. So there was a lot of emotions of stress, excitement, anxiety. You know, you feel bad for Austin, but it also makes you think, well, this might be the only time I ever get a shot in a Cup car. Who knows? So there were certainly a lot of emotions, and it was only just over 24 hours before the race. So not a whole lot of time to prepare and study for it. I didn't have a chance to get on the simulator in the Cup car at all. Or talk to too many people. So I certainly would have thought the last couple of years, if you had told me I was going to be making my Cup debut, I would think there'd be all sorts of preparation to go into it. This weekend, I didn't quite have that. So I really didn't know what to expect or how it was going to go. But I was really happy for the whole number 3 team and for Austin that we were able to have a good run. Hopefully make all of them proud and gave Austin something to cheer for from home. So I know he would have rather been at the track. Of course, anybody would be, but I'm sure it was at least fun to watch.
So I know you mentioned that going into the race, your goal was a top 30, but I didn't realize that you had no practice time on the sim. I'm sure you did a little bit of work on iRacing and you're familiar with the track from the other races that you've competed in. But I was going to say, why were your expectations so low for a top 30? But I guess that kind of answers my question in the sense of you had no real prep time up until you got the call to when you got in the actual car on that racetrack.
Yeah, I mean, in even iRacing, I didn't have any time on that. I've had my simulator stripped down the past month because I'm having it sent to get powder coated. So I didn't have any preparation time at all. But I mean, if you're wondering why my expectation was top 30, I mean, gosh, I looked at the entry list and, it's the Cup Series. It's all the big dogs. And yes, the 3-car is a very good car. It's one of the top cars, of course, but there's a lot of top cars and there's a lot of top drivers. I mean, there's some incredibly huge names who have been in the sport for decades and have a ton of experience and a ton of success. And, you look back towards 27th, 28th, 29th, those are still big names, huge names, So, I mean, I thought it was going to be an accomplishment. If I could finish in the top 30, I figured, okay, that means I must have at least been able to outrun one or two of the really big names. And that would have been really cool for me. But no, never in my wildest dreams did I think that we have a shot to go out there and drive all the way up to 7th.
So you said afterwards on the post-race Zoom that we needed to get back with you in about 24 or 48 hours because it hasn't really sunk in yet. I would hope that it's sunk in a little bit now that you got a top 10 at the Daytona Road Course in the 3-car in your Cup debut. Has it sunk in? How are you feeling?
I mean, it's starting to. It's definitely it's been a crazy ride since the end of the race as it was before the race. So that's been really cool. And I'm definitely happy for the team that a weekend like this with so many negatives going into it can come out with some pretty cool positive storylines. So we definitely are hoping to see Austin back in the car for Dover next weekend. So I'm trying to enjoy this week and hopefully Austin's going to be able to enjoy next weekend back.
So we're going to get into all this one by one, but run me through this. What was the craziest part of the following? Was it getting the call from Richard Childress, being in the number 3 car at Daytona in the Cup Series, or seeing one of your childhood idols, Jimmy Johnson, right behind you on the pace laps? I mean, all of that would have been ridiculously overwhelming for me. I imagine it was for you too. But which part of that was the craziest for you?
It was all overwhelming, and honestly, I don't think I could pick, because each of those moments are ones that will stick with me forever, in their own way. So I will say, probably getting the call from Richard was the craziest part of it all, because as I talked about, all those emotions that went into it, and not even knowing how to feel or how to think about it. I mean, it was good, it was bad. I just never imagined getting that call. You know, that's the call that I've been racing since I was 4 years old, and the whole time that you race and you work towards your career, you literally do it because one day you hope to get a call like that. You wouldn't think under these circumstances. Of course, 2020 has been crazy for everybody in the world, in all sorts of bizarre ways. So no, I certainly wouldn't have thought that this would be the circumstance I'd get that call under. But nonetheless, it was an honor to be the one to get the call. You know, it's no small task to drive the 3 car for a weekend and fill in for Austin. And there's a lot of different people they could have picked and asked to do that. And certainly everybody would have accepted. I mean, nobody would ever say no to that opportunity. So to be the one that they called and let do that, and trusted me to do that, definitely means a lot. And I really appreciate them believing in me. Before this weekend, I'd only done 7 Xfinity races with RCR before. I mean, I know it's been over the past year and a half. It feels like I've been there a while, but it's only been 7 races. This was my 8th race in an RCR car ever. So it meant a lot to me that they trusted me enough to put me behind the wheel. And I hopefully was able to make those guys proud back at the shop with the 7th place finish.
You did, for sure. No doubt about that. I'm also curious. I mean, when Richard Childress comes up on your phone, what goes through your mind? Are you like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I say? Did I tweet something? Am I in trouble? Like, what goes through your mind then?
Now, well, the first thing to know is Richard Childress doesn't come up on your phone. In fact, you get no caller ID. But we all know what that means. So when I got the no caller ID call, I figured that it was him. You always hope it's him. Anytime you get a phone call from Richard, as I have a couple of times, you know, it's cool to receive that phone call. But when I first answered the phone, I never would have imagined it to unfold the way that it did with the conversation. So that was a moment that I'll remember forever, as were many others from this past weekend.
And by the way, you led a couple laps too. I mean, I know it was in the middle of a green flag pit cycle, but you led the race. You led a cup race in your debut. That must have been crazy. I think you came over the radio at one point and you're like, are we leading this thing? And you were.
Well, yeah, I was driving around and I knew that we were on a slightly different pit strategy than some of the other guys. But slowly over the course of a few laps, I started to notice just fewer and fewer cars out front. Like the field was just thinning. I could see guys peeling off to pit, and eventually got to a point where I was coming down the backstretch and I couldn't see anyone ahead of me as far as the eye could see. So I came out of the last chicane and I looked up at the scoring monitor, which you can only glance at for a brief second. And I thought I saw the 3 on the top of the pylon. So I asked them to double check, and they said we were leading. So that was definitely a cool feeling. It was in the middle of a pit cycle, but there were a lot of cars actually on our strategy. Even though it was a different strategy than some of the leaders, we weren't the only ones on that strategy. So we were legitimately outrunning all the other cars that had pit at the same time as we did the previous time. Alex Bowman in the 88 was the one right behind us, kind of keeping the pressure on me. So yeah, even though it was during a pit cycle, hey, we still held off some pretty good cars and some really, really good drivers to be able to lead those laps, because we easily could have fallen back to where we would have never led those laps. So it was a cool feeling, leading laps, but being able to come back and finish 7th when all was said and done, when everyone was, you know, evened up and you knew everyone was racing hard on the strategy that they meant to be on, the 7th place was more meaningful to me than the leading laps. But all around it, it was that stage 3 was definitely a good time period for us. And I felt like we played our strategy well and did all the right things, executed. That's what it takes.
At what point did it sink in that you were actually going to be making your Cup debut in the 3-car at Daytona? Was it when you got the call? Was it when you had the seat fitting? Was it when you strapped in? Was it when you started the engine? Like, take me through your mindset of that whole thing.
You know, it was probably when I was writing it, like for my captions for social media or something, to give out the news that I was going to be in the car. You know, it's one thing to hear about the number 3, to say the number 3. You know, I've heard about it my whole life. The number 3 is the number 3. It's iconic. But then to actually write it down and say that I'm going to be in the number 3, that was pretty crazy and honestly felt weird to me to do that. And it's been years since I've done that because, as I'm sure you know, I used to drive the number 3 from a very young age in Bandoleros, legend cars, late models, K&N. That was always my number, and that was because it was my dad's number before. So it always held a special place in my heart. Never thought that it would be on the side of a Cup car that I would be in. I certainly never thought that would be the case. But for it to be on the side of the car for my debut was just that much more special.
I got a couple more quick ones for you. Let's talk about Daytona in general. There's something about that racetrack, or maybe even the state of Florida, that just jives with you, because I was looking at your stats at that track and I wrote some of them down. You had your 2017 Truck Series win there that vaulted you into the playoffs. Both races in 2018 in the Xfinity car, you got top 5 finishes. Even in your one ARCA start, you got a top 10. I think the one time that you didn't get a top 10 in the state of Florida while you're racing a car was at Five Flag Speedway back in your K&N days. So it's something about Southern Florida that just jives with you, Kaz. I don't know what it is.
Well, you know, and you might be right on that, because I even finished top 10 in the Snowball Derby at Five Flags.
Oh.
And, you know, for the record, I was actually running 8th on the white flag lap at Pensacola in the K&N car and popped a right front tire out of turn 2. So, yeah, I guess my luck isn't perfect in Florida. I've had some bad luck, but for some reason, when I go to Daytona International Speedway, so far I've been very fortunate to have luck. So I said it in another interview before. If you're going to have luck at any place on the schedule, Daytona is a pretty good place to have it. So I'm really hoping that it can last and not turn on me at some point. But yes, the place has been very good to me so far.
Race car drivers never forget some random K&N race, and the last one, Pensacola flat tire, of course. I should have known that you wouldn't forget that. Last one real quick, Kaz, before I let you go. What can we expect from the rest of this year from you? Do you have any more Xfinity races planned for RCR?
Yeah, you'll see me in a few more Xfinity races in the number 21 car. But other than that, I'll be working on next year and trying to see how I can find myself in a car more often. That's the goal. And I think it would help me a lot. I feel like this year, my part-time schedule, I've done well with my races, but I can't help but think if I was in the car every week and had that continuity working with the same team, going to all these different tracks. I mean, there are still tracks on the Xfinity schedule that I've never been to before, ever, in anything. Indianapolis, Darlington. So I definitely feel like I've got a lot more to learn and prove and accomplish in the Xfinity series. And the best way for me to try to do that would be with a full-time season. So I'm going to be working hard in the next few weeks to try to make something come together for that.
Well, work your magic just like you do at Daytona. We'll be watching the rest of this year in Xfinity, and hopefully next year we'll see you a little bit more on the racetrack as well. Kaz, congratulations on a great top 10 run at Daytona. Best of luck the rest of the year, and we'll catch you soon.
Thanks, Davey.